Welcome, welcome. I am Dr. Patrice Berry. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and here I share educational information on a variety of topics. Today, I have covered three really difficult cases where people are really like, how could someone do this to their family? And Sarah pointed out a phenomenal, really good thing. So, in talking about sadism, narcissism, let's see, psychopathy, and then also sociopaths. This guy on the end, oh, let me see. It does it backwards, but the guy on the very far end, his name is Steven Lorenzo. Ugh, his case gives me the chills because when you hear him speak, and we're going to do that a little bit later, when you hear him speak about actually wanting the death penalty. Like, it is just it's really, really creepy, and I wanted to make sure to cover that within this case. My goal is to share education, and with talking about why do people do bad things, my disclaimer is that this is for education only. I can't diagnose anyone, and these are just my thoughts and my theories on things. There are trigger warnings for childhood harm, death, and then people always wonder why I say schmurder, and I know how to say it correctly. The YouTube algorithm does bad things if I say it correctly, so that's why I say it that way. All right. Here's the overview. So we're going to start off with the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath, and then we're going to dig into narcissism, sadism, then we're gonna do the update on Ruby Franke. So I did a video, was that when on Monday? I did a video on Monday talking about Ruby, and I was really giving her the benefit of the doubt. That is my natural leaning. I am a clinical psychologist. I'm not a forensic psychologist. And the details of what she did to her kids are so horrific. And so I wanted to just give that update, talk about Jodi Hildebrandt, and then also my personal thoughts about Kevin and Kevin Franke's, like, what might happen with custody with the children. And then we'll end with Steven Lorenzo, and I'll show you some video from that, and I'll cover your questions as we go. I'm doing a PowerPoint, so I'll have to go back and forth between here. Uh, yes, and so we are gonna dig into all of these things. There is a difference between this. I know people think and this in no way, so saying it that way is not to make light of it, but it is the only way that I can stop the algorithm from thinking I don't know, like, it's weird. They wanna make it advertiser friendly, and so they have issues with certain words. So, psychopath versus sociopath, all right? Both do bad things and typically don't show remorse. And research has shown that typically individuals that develop psychopathic type traits, and just because somebody has psychopathic traits does not mean that they will necessarily be violent or that they'll do crimes. If you, and these are not diagnoses. So, psychopath, sociopath, that's how we describe these things within general culture. Within the DSM 5, within the DSM, it's called antisocial personality disorder, if someone meets criteria for that. There any disorder within the DSM, it has to impair someone's functioning. So there are people that just don't react to, like, they can watch really scary things, they can watch really horrific things. That doesn't mean that they're a sociopath. But if people have a lot of these traits, if these traits start to stack up, that's where it might lean towards an antisocial personality. And antisocial means against social norms. It doesn't mean not social. That would be more asocial. All right. So psychopaths typically are hypo aroused when it comes to negative emotions, which means that they with sadness, with like they just don't react. They can see something horrific and there isn't a physiological response. So I I don't watch things that are too suspenseful. Like, I like to know how things are gonna turn out. It's my own anxiety, I know. And, so I am really connected with how people feel, what kind of happens. That's why emotional boundaries are really important for me. And with someone who has those psychopathic type traits, they don't react and respond to emotions the way other people do. They typically don't show guilt, shame, regret, and they typically don't feel bad when they're caught. And this is why they can lie and a lie detector potentially not catch it, because with a lie detector it's looking at the physiological, it's looking at how the body responds to the truth and a lie. And because, yeah, like a psychopath can lie and not have a physiological response, not show some of those typical indicators. Now the body language experts will say that everyone kind of has certain tells, like so Dr. G explains. I do also watch the behavioral arts. If you watch any of those channels, they dive deep into analysis, and so sometimes there are ways the body can show. That is not my expertise. I defer to them on that. I believe it was Sarah that pointed out that a lot of people within that first slide, that they were really successful, and that's what happened. So people with psychopathic traits, they tend to be quite successful. My gosh, y'all know sometimes I struggle with saying certain words. They are methodical and very calculating, and they typically want authority and power. Those are typically things that fuel them, and so you have to be careful within medical professions, sometimes like lawyers. I heard of a case recently of a lawyer that conspired with her client, and they did a horrific thing to his ex. That case is over on Grizzly True Crime. Shout out to any Grizzlies that are watching, because like that, she crossed the line big time. And because but that doesn't mean that all lawyers have these things, doesn't mean that all doctors have these things. It's just that sometimes people with psychopathic type traits, they're drawn to positions of power. Sociopaths, on the other hand, tend to be erratic and impulsive, and they tend to get caught. To me, Daryl Brooks is more on that. No, I don't know him personally. It's my opinion that he was more of like the sociopath, because he was not methodical. He was not planned. He seemed to be very impulsive, and he's very erratic and all over the place. And uh, and so, yes, that's my thought on that one. Alright. Psychopaths tend to be very manipulative. They tend to have a lot of self-control. They tend to be well-educated. Like I said, not all are violent, and they're able to fake or mimic emotions where they come off like they care. So I do think that individuals that knew Alec Murdaugh, in my opinion, he seems to show some antisocial type traits, also narcissistic traits. Other people probably would have thought that he came off as caring, that he came off as likable. And to me, it was more of a superficial charm. But if you dug deeper, you would kind of see that it was all about him, in my opinion. All right. I'm going to come back to the chat just to check in. Yeah. Daryl Brooks and his subject matter I just that Judge Duro, I just like, let's poor Judge Duro, and now she's having to deal with the other one. Is it Boone? Yeah, now she's having to deal with Sarah Boone and her 30 to 20 something page letters. I just can't. She has so much more just patience and all of that than I could have. Um I agree that Murdaugh had more of like a politician type charm. I definitely agree with that. Judge Jura, but she doesn't hide it completely, because you can tell when she's starting to get frustrated, but she does try to handle that. Okay, okay. So, and I might have missed a comment earlier. So I'm talking about sociopaths versus psychopaths, and this was based on some of my research on this. All right. All right. So sociopaths tend to be a product of their environment. They come from a history of some harms, like as children, neglect. Maybe they are in an environment where they can get caught up with the wrong crowd, and that's often what happens. Typically, there's that lack of conscience. They have the ability to feel remorse and guilt, but they lack the strength to not do the things that would cause that. All right. So, a little bit more for sociopaths, they tend to be easily agitated and angered. Versus psychopaths, they tend to have more control over their emotions. Sociopaths are more likely to get caught. They struggle to keep jobs. They might isolate themselves. They tend to be irresponsible and impulsive. And, I think I would say that both sociopaths and psychopaths have this care about themselves, but psychopaths are able to fake it in a way where it comes off as though people don't realize that they're being manipulated versus like you clearly know that because to me, Darryl Brooks was not hiding anything. He did not come off as like he was trying to manipulate the judge, but you could tell. Like it was not cunning or it was just bad. It was just really bad. I wish I had covered that one. I wish I had covered that one back a while ago. Imma take a little chat break again. Um I agree. Yes. Psychopaths tend to be those planners and plotters, and sociopaths tend to do things impulsively. Once again, these are not DSM terms. These are just common colloquial things that we kind of say. Because sometimes people ask, okay, so what's the difference? And I might join. So there is it Tiffany Lee? I think that's her name. I might join up with her because she wants to talk about SBF, Sam Bakeman Fried, and talk about whether he might be more a sociopath or a psychopath. If we do schedule that collaboration, I will definitely post that here so you all know that that is coming up. All right. Now, I had so many people comment about sadism with the um y'all know me and names. Me and names are not good. It was I have to go back. I think it was Jesse. There are too many Sandra. So with Shanda Vander Ark, with that case, so she was the one that caused harm to she used her oldest son to harm her next oldest child, resulting in him not being alive anymore. And a lot of people were just like, she was sadistic. It seemed like she enjoyed causing other people pain. And the DSM-2, so we're going back years and years, okay? So we're going back to the DSM-2 in 1968. There was a sadistic personality disorder. However, with the DSM-3, they ended up dropping it and they really focused more on research and they really felt that sadism fell under either narcissism or antisocial, or it was some combination of the two of those. They didn't really think that that needed to be a separate personality disorder. People that follow forensics, people that kind of talk, they will sometimes refer to a sadistic personality. It's just not in the DSM. And they also didn't want people to use disorders to justify criminal behavior. And so that one was dropped from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that the American Psychiatric Association puts out about that has all the diagnoses in it. I have my big DSM-5 somewhere over on my shelf over there. All right. So, what is sadism? It refers to the enjoyment or gratification gained from inflicting pain, suffering, or humiliation on others. And It can often be connected to traits of antisocial or possibly narcissistic or some other personality disorders. There can be this where an individual uses shame, an individual uses suffering, and I think really so when we talk about Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt, to me, I think Jodi was the one that was like, "Let's cause physical pain. Let's restrict food." Now these are my thoughts. I do not know this for sure, and we will get into some of the details that, Ruby admitted that she participated in, which have me I really hope that she gets significant jail time, and to me, I think Jodi was the one that believed more of that, and it might be because I'm a therapist and I hold therapists to another standard because we have training on what's healthy, what's not healthy, what's harmful, and what doesn't cause harm, and I think any rational therapist should have known that this type of treatment would cause harm and pain. Okay? So those are my thoughts. Let me come back to the chat. All right. Oh. So I do believe this was an act when Shanda a lot of people think that she forced herself to do it. A lot of people think that. Um, Welcome to anybody on the replay crew or anybody that's joining a little later. Feel free to either just come start here or to go back and watch on. If you watch it on the quicker speed, you might catch up faster. But oh, uh-oh. Jody's parenting techniques are widely used in Utah. What? What? So, like, making kids do physical so that can be considered, physical harm if you make a child run outside until they have blisters and they're bleeding. In my state, that would be considered harm to a child, okay? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Alright, so that's sadism. So narcissism, okay? So narcissism is a spectrum. I think all of these things, sadistic behavior can kind of be on a spectrum. So just because somebody has some narcissistic traits does not mean that they meet criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. That is at the extreme end. I do think. Ooh, I think I can say this. So I do think Alec Murdaugh would likely, if he ever subjected himself to a psychological evaluation and was honest and truthful, I do think that he would probably flag the narcissism scale. I would think so. Um, there are also some personality tests that test for levels of sadism as well. I heard another psychologist talk about that, but all right. So, narcissism is characterized by a grandiose, big sense of self importance, a lack of empathy for others, and constant need for admiration. And with this diagnosis, a narcissist's secret is that they are incredibly insecure and that I kind of view it as kind of peacocking, that they like make themselves so big because they actually feel pretty small, and they try to manipulate and control others using all types of tactics. You often hear about gaslighting. So that's where if an individual hit me and then they would be like, why did you make me hit you? And it's like, wait a minute, what? Or I didn't hit you that hard. And it's like you can't tell me what I felt. That often a narcissist will try to change your reality and change your perspective. I do think that this also happened within the Ruby Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt case and Jesse when they talked about their experience with their aunt Jodi. It was really, really just the therapy and just the because Jessie really believed the things that Jodi was telling her. And that's where when the person inflicting the harm is a parent or is a teacher or somebody who is in an authority role or somebody that you have a relationship with, that always causes more damage to the individual. Because in general, we think, "I can trust what my parent says. My parent doesn't want to cause me harm." Like, that's what you think, or your experience is your idea of normal, and then if you find out and realize, "Wait a minute, that wasn't parents don't they're everybody's parent doesn't take their bed if they do something minor for 6 months." Like, no, 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 like, that's not normal, typical parenting. That can really just shift a person's perspective when they come to realize that. Alright? So going back to the sociopath, once again, it's something that we just kind of use, but it refers to being deceitful, impulsive, irritability, aggression, lack of remorse. It can sometimes be connected to maybe antisocial personality disorder or some other diagnosis, one of those personality disorders. And then psychopath. So I don't think it's interchangeable. I do kind of separate the two, the sociopath versus psychopath. You will hear some people use them interchangeably. I view the psychopath as more, they're often have very high intelligence, often very bright and smart. And a case that I will talk about, and I have the picture of it at the end. There was testimony today. There's sentencing of I don't wanna skip ahead. There is, sentencing of Bryce. I'm bad with names. I forget his last name, but a diagnosis of intellectual disability came up today, and I definitely want to talk about that, and I'll do that in a whole separate video. Alright? Alright. Let me come back to the chat to reset. Okay. Wait a minute. Let me see. Many CEOs, yeah. So I would say sociopath. I would say sociopath versus psychopath. That's my opinion. All right. Oh, can you talk about the narcissist empath cycle? So my understanding, so if we're talking about the same thing, often a narcissist will, and you say empath, sometimes it's actually codependent. So there are people that the difference between someone who's codependent and an empath is boundaries. So sometimes people who are empathic, they might have been raised in homes where they believe that they were responsible for their parents' emotions. And I've sometimes had to work with people on emotional boundaries. And there's a great book. It's called Where I End and You Begin. Where I End and You Begin. So what I often see is a narcissist will portray themselves as being very broken. They will often say that the person saved them, that the relationship saved them, and then that's how they hook the person, um, to then be like, "I can't make it without you," and then the narcissist will harm them, and then the codependent person will feel like, "I can't ever let you go because like, you can't make it without," or we make each other better, or there can be some boundaries that are definitely violated. Yes, enmeshment. And enmeshment can happen within families. So I think Ruby was enmeshed with her children. I probably one of the worst things they could have done was have a family vlog, because I think she saw her children, and these are my thoughts and my opinions. I think she saw her children as an extension of her. But like, you represent me. If you go to school and if you mess up, that reflects poorly on me. And that's how a lot of people were raised. That's how I was raised. I was raised, you better not act up because like people are going to look. So I don't think that way. So if my child is acting up in the store, I don't assume that people are thinking I'm a bad mom. Thank you for this. It's Rhodes. Bryce Rhodes. That's the one we're gonna talk about later. All right, ADHD. I'll go back to what I was talking about. So I don't think that there's something wrong if if my child is acting up. Like, he's making a choice. I'm a parent and he is going to have consequences. I'm going to work on it, but I could be the best parent in the world and my child might make bad decisions. Like, now I am doing everything I can to raise a healthy, stable, responsible human. Okay? So I'm not neglectful. I'm not like, leaving him to like letting him raise himself. No, but I'm not so controlling where I'm like, the minute you act up at school, that was a bad reflection on me. Like, no, that was a poor choice, and here's our consequence. So compulsive lying. Y'all ask the best questions. So compulsive lying. So there's pathological lying, and then there's compulsive lying. I believe that in my opinion, Alec Murdaugh does pathological. So him saying that he wasn't at the boat at the kennel, that was a pathological lie. Like all his whole because he knows more than he knows. He knows something. Okay, and he was found guilty of doing it. Okay, and okay. And so and then compulsive lying is when people just lie about the color of their hair. Like if someone that just lies about anything, what I've often found, so I'm a clinical psychologist. So my goal when I see pathology, I want to get to the root. I want to see why I'm seeing this. I want to see what's happened. So when I work with kids that are compulsively lying, especially kids in foster care, kids that have had significant histories of trauma, I often find that there was a time when they weren't believed or that they're trying to fit in. And so some people feel like they have to, and then sometimes it's ADHD. Okay, so people with ADHD are more likely to lie because it's you have to tell the truth, that comes from the frontal cortex, okay? Telling the truth comes from the prefrontal cortex, and so when I work with compulsive liars, I encourage them to take a breath, to think about and to provide the truth. That sometimes that first thought that comes to their mind, because often people are lying to either connect with somebody. So that's the person that says, "Oh, I'm going on vacation." And like, "Oh, I went there too," but they didn't. Like that's a lie. Or some people lie to get out of trouble. You ask your child, "Did you do your homework?" And they say yes. So that's where as a therapist, I encourage parents to say, "Show me your homework," instead of "Did you do it?" Because they're gonna say "Yeah, I did it." They didn't do their homework. And so, yes. All right. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad you all are here. Is it in Kentucky? So, y'all, I'm bad with the details because, like I said, I'm gonna go research it and do it later. So, I love this. If you take credit for all the good, your kids do, you have to take credit when they mess up. They're their own person. Your job as a parent to teach by word and example. And example is so important. Kids do what you do; they do not do what you say. All right, all right. Trying to make sense of the Ruby Jodi case. Yeah. Okay, so you see Jodi as the dominant and Ruby as the submissive. And with that, a lot of people are like, why didn't Kevin stand up? I do believe that Kevin had not talked or seen the kids, I think, in something like y'all would know the details better than I do, but when he said that he had not seen them in person, so Jodi's what she would do is she would isolate people from their families. She would isolate the husbands from their families. I wanna say it was Adam. I believe there was a man named Adam that came forward and talked about all the ridiculous allegations that were made against him and how his wife, there was a lot of, not so there was a lot of weird stuff that happened that allegedly Jodi was telling the wife to do to test him to see if he was, like, good enough. And, in my last video where I talked about Ruby Franke, I played a clip from a single client who said if she had come into the group in a relationship, she thought that she would likely be leaving the group, not in a relationship, just because the way that Jodi was talking to the women, it was almost like the ideals and the perspectives, it was too much and no one was ever going to be good enough. Yes, Adam Steed, yes. He was the one that talked about that, his own experience and his own recovery. He was the one that had Jodi lose her license the first time because of confidentiality. And I think along the way, because I think her license was suspended, but I don't think it was ever like revoked. So I think she just didn't call what she was doing therapy. But more recently, I want to say it was in September or October, she did relinquish her license and she can never call herself a licensed therapist ever again. Um, all right. Let's see. Um, all right. All right. So I am gonna pull up the article about about Ruby Franke. Oh, y'all, the details of this are so just get ready for it. It is, and I have the links to the article and everything that I'm sharing down in the description. So, all right. I thought I already had this open. I did not. We are professional here. All right, share this tab. All right. So, new details emerge as YouTuber Ruby Franke pleads guilty to child abuse and agrees to testify against Jodi Hildebrandt. All right. So, I want to get to the statement that was submitted on her behalf by her lawyer. And what she starts with is, "With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family." Oh, no, that sorry, that's what she said in court. I already yeah, we did that part. So, her sentencing agreement, the plea deal, it says, "Ruby Franke is a devoted mother." I'm gonna make this bigger because that's probably hard to see. So y'all can read along with me if you would like. Let's move me to the side. There we go. Alright. I think I can make it just a little bit bigger. Y'all ignore the ads. I can't. I know. That's all right. Ruby Franke is a devoted mother and is also a woman committed to constant improvement. Okay. So this is what her lawyer issued a statement. And it's so I do think because a lot of people talk about Ruby possibly having her own. So Ruby wasn't a saint and Kevin wasn't a saint before they met Jodi. It's my understanding that 3 years ago, they were struggling with their oldest son, and that's when he started treatment with Jodi. At some point, I think Jodi might have lived with the family for a period of time, like, all of this is just and eventually, things got to the point where they were getting so many CPS complaints based on what viewers were seeing that they ended up just shutting down their YouTube channel altogether. And their YouTube channel had over 2 million subscribers, which meant probably even more than 2 million people were probably watching their videos. Normally only a percentage of your subscribers see your videos. So Ruby from oh, sorry to read that part. Um all right. So she had the blah 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 blah. Go on. Ugh, she has actively engaged in an introspection that has allowed her to reset her moral compass and understand the full weight of her actions. Miss Frankie is committed to taking responsibility for the part she played in the events leading up to her incarceration. The thing that I am glad is that they have not agreed on a sentencing amount. So she is submitting this statement admitting to what she did, and it's gonna be up to the judge to decide what happens. So Frankie admits that she forced her now 12-year-old son from May 22nd through August. Sorry. Okay. So from May 22nd through August 30th, she forced him into hours of physical tasks such as wall sits and carrying boxes of heavy books up and down the stairs, summer work outdoors without adequate water, and repeated and serious sunburns that ended up blistering. He was denied food or given very plain meals. punished when he secretly drank water and he was isolated from other people without access to books, notebooks, or electronics. After he tried to run away in July, this poor baby. Hmm. After he tried to run it away in July, his hands and feet were regularly bound, sometimes with handcuffs. At times, ropes were used to tie together handcuffs that secured his hands and feet as he lay on his stomach, lifting his arms and legs off the ground, injuring his wrists and ankles. So I'm thinking he was hogtied, okay? Oh. When handcuffs cut into his skin and injured his hands and wrists, those injuries were treated with homeopathic, remedies and covered with duct tape. That is not, so that's medical neglect in my mind. Not a lawyer in my mind. So when he was injured, he did not receive adequate medical care. The bindings were replaced. So then they would put the bindings on top of the duct tape according to the agreement. Frankie also admitted to kicking her son while wearing boots, holding his head underwater, and smothering his mouth and nose with her hands. Jeez. Frankie tried to convince her son he was evil and possessed and needed to repent and could avoid the punishments by being obedient. And this is very reminiscent to Jesse's testimony, and like to what Jesse said that they endured, and how they believed it. They were convinced that they were evil. And I do remember on the 911 tape, which is just absolutely horrific, I remember the son saying something to the effect of, like, that he does, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was, I do think so. There is a real thing called Stockholm syndrome, and that's when the oppressor ends up convincing the victim that they're the one that's prolonging, like they end up convincing them that what's happening is okay. And I just the amount of therapy, the amount of just probably for the rest of uh, uh okay, the amount of therapy. Mm. He was told that everything that was being done to him were acts of love. So to me, this is spiritual abuse, emotional abuse, like this is all of the things. Frankie acknowledged similarly physically harming her 9-year-old daughter by forcing her to work outside, run on dirt roads barefoot, and go without food and water, causing severe physical and emotional. They only mention emotional here, but there was physical too. Her daughter's feet had been repeatedly injured according to the agreement, and those wounds were evident by scabs, blisters, and sleuthing skin when she was found. And she was also repeatedly sunburned. She was also repeatedly told that she was evil and possessed. The punishments were necessary for her to be obedient and repent. And these things were done to her. These things being done to her were in order to help her. The girl was convinced that what her mother said was true. Oh, okay. Let's take a break. Ah. So, I do think that when I think Ruby was kind of already on a path of being okay with intense treatments, or that you had to, I think she was kind of already on a path. I think Jodi had already done some of this in the past, and I do think Ruby should be held accountable for her part, okay? I do hope that she has significant jail time. She's facing 15 years for each of the 4 counts, and that would serve concurrently. I do not think that she'll get the full 15. I wonder if she'll get about 10 per I wonder if she'll get about 40 years. I don't know. If I was the judge, I would not be giving grace and mercy. These children were not doing anything wrong. The things that they were talking about might have been something ridiculous, like, "I can tell in your heart that you have evil towards," but, like, "You're not feeding me. Of course I'm having," I don't know, like, "Oh, in Utah, she'll probably get 4 to 6 years." Per count? SL Conley, please tell me per count, the sentence range is 4 to 60 years. I hope it is very long. I was disappointed with the Timothy Ferriter case. If y'all follow crime, y'all know who I'm talking about. He only got 5 years. I've also seen people that do this to their own children. Some, even though it causes more harm, I've seen them get less time. So if Ruby had done this to a stranger's child, I think she would face a higher punishment. Oh, welcome Nightbot. It's working. Nightbot's actually working. If anything weird ever happens with Nightbot, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to be I'm trying to be trying to figure out this YouTube thing. Okay. Um Minimum 1 year per ch but I hope she gets way more. 4 years would be a travesty. For all of that, even though she's admitting guilt, even I just "What did you do, Sarah? What did you do?" So it doesn't like all caps, it doesn't like some other stuff. Uh, alright. Caps, yeah, yeah, and so, it is caps are hard to read when you're streaming, alright. I truly, truly, really do hope that Ruby gets a significant amount of time. What she has admitted to, because that's what we can say. What she has admitted to is absolutely horrific. Absolutely, absolutely horrific, and I do think she should do significant time, okay? How could someone do this to their own child? So it's my understanding, and what y'all have said in the chat, is that she didn't want the last 2. Ah, and she felt forced by her religion and by her husband to have the last 2 children, and ugh, that is no excuse, okay? That in no way excuses anything. If there was already some contempt and animosity for these children, and to me, she'd already gotten away with so much, okay? So, she had already gotten away with all the other stuff. So, all of the former CPS reports, I don't know that the children would have been removed, okay? So, not her letting her daughter miss 1 meal, her 6-year-old at the time, or 5, or she was in pre-K, kindergarten, something like that. The 1 meal that the child missed, even taking the kid's bed for 6 months, and he slept on a beanbag, while that's not good parenting, I don't know that that would have raised the level to criminal charges or even juvenile court getting involved. I think CPS, child, what is it? It's, uh prevention services. In my state, it is, because there's child protective services, and then there are foster care prevention workers. If there's a case that's kind of on the line and they wanna get services in place, they've got multiple calls for a person. So this family, what they would do when CPS would come, so they had multiple CPS complaints that were filed. What they would do is they would simply not answer the door. Like, it must be nice to what? Like, they would just not answer the door. And then I think they ended up putting stuff over their windows. And so, I do think, to me, in all the videos, to me, I saw Ruby as more of the aggressor. I do think that Kevin sat back and allowed things to happen. I don't think he was aware that they were doing these types of punishments to the kids. I think that's why he's filed for divorce. within child protective services, within those cases, they always have, the first goal is gonna be family preservation, because they might try to terminate Ruby's parental rights. I agree. Natalie Lawyer Chick, her and I talked about this case, and she talked about, parental alienation, and that's a charge, and that he and often, because he left them with their mother, and he just went off to work and all of that. Uh, I used to be a family preservation therapist. So, I used to supervise, visits, and I have also been involved with, termination of rights. That's never anything that I took, because as the psychologist, as the therapist that had witnessed things, I was either a fact witness or an expert witness based on what I had seen. I do not do parenting capacities. So I would really like Kevin to have to do a parenting capacity where they observe his dynamic with the children, where they give him like a full psychological evaluation. They also look at his discipline strategies and how he manages things. He's probably already done parenting classes, like, since the kids were removed. I do think that he'll have to do that. Um I did see those reviews about him getting upset about, like, secular music or TikTok dances, like, all of them, and they were on YouTube, and they're all upset over TikTok. Okay. Okay. I'm so glad that Florida moved away from privatization of CPS, because that turned it into a business, and the care of children should never be in a for-profit industry. And so, I'm glad that Florida moved away for this from that. So, I have worked with some phenomenal CPS workers, okay? I have worked with some, amazing social workers. I've also worked with some not so great ones that did not enjoy their job, they did not do their job. I had, clients in foster care where, like, I would have to track down their worker, and it was absolutely ridiculous. And so, um um, every field has its ups and downs. I totally get that. Yeah, yes. Yep, where the Maya Kowalski case was, yep. So, we won't go there. Alright, alright. So, let's see. Somebody asked a great question of any thoughts on why Jodi does this? I think she enjoys it. So that's why we open talking about sadism, and so these are just my thoughts. I do not know her personally. From everything Jesse said, like, it sounds like she has this belief that it's her mission, and her, like, God has told her, which, like, that's mm, mm, no, that she believes that she has the knowledge, and I don't know, like that it's her job to like, it's not quite, but it was on the path of being a Lori Vallow situation. It really was. It really was. Why does she isolate people? It sounded like Connections was almost a cult. Those are my opinions. It sounds like, so in a cult, you can't disagree. In a cult, the leader is the only one that has the answers, and you have to go to the leader for the answers. In a cult, it's all about manipulation and control. I did a video on twin flames, and I talked a lot about cults. I think that's under the entertainment playlist. But Connections comes off a little culty to me, and they also wanna monopolize your time. So, it's my understanding with Connections, you were not only attending groups, you not only attended individual, you also had to do an additional, like, 7 hours a week of phone confessions or something, like, ugh, ugh, that's that sounds like a lot. Okay, so what does she get out of this? I think I think she viewed it as her spiritual mission. Ugh, ugh. Like, I think it's really twisted, and it's really hard for rational people, for people that don't get pleasure out of harming people, like, for other people to understand just how Jodi could do this. I spelled Ruby wrong. Also, don't you think Ruby was harming her kids before she met Jodi? So, I think she was definitely an authoritarian parent. I think she was extremely, like, regimented and strict. Um, there are very clear things that are harm. So in my state, harm is leaving marks. Emotional abuse is incredibly hard to prove. So hard to prove that they often have to be in some type of therapy, and a psychologist is testifying saying, like, this is the harm that the person caused. So emotional is really, really hard to prove. It's easy to prove that what happened from that was it May to August, that was clearly, um, harmful. And so yes. Alright, so that question was from Debbie. And then somebody asked, "Can Ruby be rehabilitated?" I do believe that probably a stipulation will be that she never have unsupervised contact with children. There might be, I don't know if they'll do something around her not having contact with the minors involved in this case. I don't know what the state, and I don't know if those children's therapists are going to come in and be a part of the recommended sentence, because I do believe these children have now been in legit therapy, have now somebody's probably been working with them for months, and I would be interested to see what somebody else thought about this. Um, they might do a stipulation kind of like they did with Timothy Ferreter, where she would have to do some type of psychological evaluation. To me, she still comes off as very, like, prim and pretty and put together and kind of about appearances. Like, to me, these are my personal opinions. To me, she still seems to focus on herself and to care what people think about her. Because to start her statement with, "I'm a devoted and loving mother," and then to have the crap that they put later, I need, like, a screaming sound, okay? Where's the screaming sound right now? Okay. Let me come back. Okay. I hope not. I hope nobody is. I hope we all know that connections is harmful, and there was nothing therapeutic. There was nothing like, "Ugh, ugh," and anyone that was trained in those techniques, they should be retrained, and ugh. So even within cults, so the way that cults become successful is that end up they might have something positive. Like, what I mean by positive is, I mean, like, they have people are looking for answers, people are looking for help and support, and people get desperate, okay? And they've tried everything else, and they just want help. I remember, the last video I did about Ruby, and we played that video of the former client, that client talking about how Jodi's style was more aggressive, and she thought maybe she needed that. No. I don't know. Nobody needs a therapist that is, in my opinion, causing harm to their relationships, disconnecting them from people that they love. So I never tell my client to cut someone off. So I work with people that are in DV style situations, and it is their choice what they do with that. My goal is to build them up, is to encourage them. My goal is to work with them, and then they decide what they do with their life. So I am a person that offers support. I am not the healer. I'm not the one that fixes people. Okay. And when a client tells me, Dr. Barry, you saved me, I'm like, oh no, you made the decision. Like I'm because I also don't want somebody to come back later and be like, Dr. Barry, you told me to leave him. And now, but no, I didn't. No, I never did. Now I asked you, are we choosing this person from our healed place or are we choosing them from our broken place? And then we talk about it. Like I might have asked some questions, but I did not tell you to do anything. Um, I think Jodi had really, really bad boundaries, and that's that. Okay. So those first, her first hearing, Ruby's first hearing, she seemed embarrassed and humiliated and all of that. Dr. G talked about the fact that this last one, she seemed more confident, that she see her back, like her presentation was very different. Her curls, I mean, Emily D. Baker even talked about her, like, how does she get those curls? And people had thoughts. Thank you so much. So StreamYard has a filter. Okay, so my skin, I have pimples. Okay, StreamYard has a do the blemishes away, and then I have beautiful lighting. Okay, but thank you, thank you, thank you. I should just say thank you. um, and yes, because Lisa, you're the one that noticed that I re-dyed my hair. Oh, she might be on some type of medication. So, individuals who are incarcerated, they are available if they need medication. She didn't come off as sedated to me. She didn't. She seemed like her typical self to me. Uh, she didn't come off to me as being medicated. Uh, like it was. Sorry, her hair looked good. Okay? Her curls were gorgeous. I'm sorry. So we laughed so that we can get a little break before getting into more horrific things. Okay. So now what's next? Okay. So let's talk about Steven Lorenzo. All right. And I will share. You know what? I had all these tabs set up. These tabs are all glorious. Here we go. All right. Let's do just a brief overview of his case. He was convicted of causing harm to, I believe it was 2 or 3 people, and I believe it was 3 because he was facing the death penalty. And Steven Lorenzo, he defended himself. So he acted as his own lawyer. He files like long depositions, like he filed all of his stuff. He comes off as incredibly intelligent. He does give me kind of those psychopathic, sadistic type things, and he is going to ask for the death penalty. Okay. I have this full video linked below. It's my understanding that him and another person that so he was into like so it's like where you get pleasure out of, but like it's like bondage. So Maca. Y'all know the word I'm trying to say. Why can't I say that word today? Macus. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Mm, me and me and my words, but so let's go on ahead and watch a little bit of this, and then we will talk about it.
I stayed in front because it was a Saturday morning. There were people at my house. In my neighborhood, people all stopped and said hello to each other. If I was in the back making noise, they would come back to find out if I was where I was. So I stayed in the front with one of the other guys. And if anybody came along, I could say I'm having work done at my garage.
I cannot tell you how much what I hear from you infuriates me.
I know it does. I can tell. But I don't know. You're asking me to tell you the truth. I'm telling you the truth.
Are there other homicide victims? Other than this evening, are there any other homicide victims that have died at your hands.
Yeah.
Mr. Lorenzo, do you wish to give an opening at this time?
Just something real quick. Yes.
Certainly, absolutely. And I'm going to allow you to remain there.
Yeah.
And there's a microphone in front of you. Just make sure the green light is on. If you need to move it closer, you're welcome to do so. But I can pretty much hear you.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. That's a wonderful story. It's a very dramatic story, but it's a lie. It's a lie. Mr. Schweikert made up this story.
So Mr. Schweikert is a person that was there and witnessed the crime. And I believe he worked out a deal with the prosecution. And so Mr. Lorenzo is saying that all of that was a lie. But then it's gonna get weird. We'll keep
And I
going.
made it very, very clear in my 160-something page that he made it up to appease the state because he was hoping he was going to walk from this case. So he was hoping that he could talk his way out of it. And so he gave them the story that they wanted to hear, and they conformed it with the fantasy role-playing chats. That's fine. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me because the defense wants the death penalty. The defense is saying, yes, give me the death penalty. That is absolutely great. That's exactly what I want. I'm 64 years old. I could be on death row for 10, 15 years. The comforts that they get in the death row are a lot more comfortable than it is in the federal system. You get your own private cell, you get your own TV, you get your own computer, you get all this stuff. But your privacy, your daily quality of life privacy at my age is invaluable. I have a life sentence in the feds. I'm going to be in prison for the next 10 or 15 years until I would normally die anyway. I could be in the state for 10 or 15 years before they even get to me. I can possibly pass on before I even get there, but I want to be comfortable. I want to do my time my way. It's easy time. So I'm going anyway. As far as I'm concerned, everybody here is on death row. Everybody's got to go sometime. We've all been given a death sentence. And what the best the state can do is give me euthanasia. And that's how I see it. It's euthanasia. It's by choice. That's what I want to do. So I'm not arguing with the state. So what I'm going to do my basic.
They want you to change commercials. Let me mute this. All right, I'm gonna turn the sound back on and fast forward. There we go.
Objections to certain things to keep things fair and balanced for the Supreme Court, because I know it's going there, and that's fine. But I'm really not going to try to counter their false claims. That's a false claim. They're twisting the facts. They're twisting it all around. And that's their job to do it. That's fine. But I'm not going to counter it because I want this court to make me think I'm the worst thing on 2 feet. I want them to continue to sit that, because the more they think I'm the bad guy, the more further the chance I'm going to get the death penalty. So I'm not going to try to argue that. I'm not going to try to counter it, even though it's so twisted. I'm beside myself. But I expect that. I put in what exactly happened that night on that document. I did that on purpose because I knew this was coming. And I'm not going to sit there and argue and try to change it, because I want you to believe it. Go ahead, believe it. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But I want you to see what really transpired, because that is fair to let you know exactly what happened.
What? And so I have never. So like that video gave me like, ugh. And then at the end, he's going to say something to the effect of like he believes in reincarnation, and so him dying just means that he's going to come back. And like the whole video is just very, very odd. Very, very odd. Please, so I have the link to his video. Stefan Lorenzo, Law and Crime, has done a lot of coverage. So he didn't have a trial because he represented himself and he decided to plead guilty, I believe, but he contests the facts because he says that he didn't participate in the harm. Like, he says that somebody else did it, and it's really random. He says something to the effect of like it was a bondage group, and that somebody else took it too far and that they're the ones that actually harmed, and that he was sitting on his front porch the whole time and he didn't participate in the dismembering. And so like it's really like it gave me the ugh. Um but he seemed to enjoy talking about himself, and the judge will even comment later. So the judge does give him the death penalty, and, the judge says something in Italian, I think, of, like, I don't know, like the judge says something at the end. Go back and watch that full video. That's what I was trying to say. Masochist. Thank you. Thank you. That was the word I was trying to say earlier that I couldn't say. He is. And yeah, but like he took things to some extremes, and he just comes across, he gave me Dahmer vibes. Okay? Like really was just icky. Ugh. All right. So, do y'all have any questions for me before we wrap this up? Let me go back to this one. So, oh yeah, Sean, we talked about her. We talked about Alec. So what's next is Bryce Rhodes. We are going to be covering this one. There was a clinical psychologist that testified today talking about intellectual disabilities. And I want to cover that in a whole separate video. And we will do that. And there's nothing wrong. So I've worked with people that did like that enjoyed kink and all of that. For So normally there are safe words, there's an agreement, and but things got to a level where somebody isn't here anymore. And yes, originally from Kentucky. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Awesome, awesome. All right. These cases. Thank y'all again. Ooh, I have one more thing to share because I am going to have a stream coming up. I will post it to the community tab, or you'll see it come up as being scheduled when it's available. There we go. So these are the cases that really changed my channel altogether. So the Murdaugh case is the stream that got my channel monetized. So none of my videos had ever received more than maybe 1 to 2,000 views. That video, like, the Dorothy Lewis video is still my highest viewed one. And the sad thing about that video is I despised her testimony. And that was the video where I couldn't even pretend. Like, I'm just over here like, and then I realized, oh, I can just be me. And like, y'all get it. And people that think it's unprofessional for me to do those things, I will just delete their comments, hide them from my channel, and everything will be fine. Yes, it is Dr. Lewis. Yes, yes, yes. So, and I can't point. So right over by Leticia. So I am going to just do a review of my favorite cases. Oh, the YouTubes. So, okay. And I'm gonna talk about this more on that stream too. I started this channel to do mental health education, and I never thought it was gonna go in this route. This wasn't my goal. Then I saw the way that Emily D. Baker, Natalie, Rob, the lawyer, I saw the way that all of them covered things from a legal perspective. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that from a psychological perspective. And I figured out some techie things on my end. And wow, like y'all are amazing. I so love it here. Um, so before Dr. Lewis, Dr. Spiegel was my least favorite expert witness ever. And then like Dr. Lewis made Spiegel look completely, oh yeah, we all diagnose people from watching their rehearsal videos. Like, oh, everything's fine. Like, Dr. Lewis, that was so bad. So bad. And if you haven't checked out that video, I have a court playlist. I'm still going to do the educational videos. It's just a lot of the channel's going to be looking at court cases that have a psychological side. Sarah, her son, why was he there? What? I have never. So so I do telehealth, and my child has come into my office, and I had to like mute myself. I had to, I like, I, and the way that it faces, I face a wall and I see him come in and I'm able to stop him from like, make sure that everything stays confidential. Um, and my clients just laugh. My kid is only 6 years old. I've been doing telehealth since he was since he was like 2.5 or 3. And it is what it is. But this case just completely just blew my mind. Um Wait a minute, I meant to do Sarah's. I think there's some different things. Oh, who is Dr. Lewis? Blasphemy. I'm joking. I'm joking. I think my video might be like one of the trending videos that come up if you try to look at Dr. Lewis and Letitia Stout. Okay. Um the algorithm's weird. So yeah, it's just weird. So, um, and Anna MD, so you might be one of the people that like followed me for my there we go. Anna, you might be one of the people that followed me before I did court stuff. And so because I had like 1,000 people, like I had a certain number of people before all of that. And now the majority of y'all are crime junkies, and I love it. I adore it. I am one too. And I like that I get to talk about this stuff here. My husband did none of this. He doesn't watch crime. Like he doesn't watch this kind of stuff. He doesn't watch my channel, which is why we're able to talk about him a little bit, but not like really. We're able to say a few things. We're able to have our little inside jokes, but um, I'm glad that y'all have joined me for this. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.